McAbee of RotoBaller, my co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. What a race. I think this is the season of what the fuck just happened finishes. So we had Atlanta, we had that craziness, we had Kansas, we had the ending of the Coca-Cola 600, and then we had whatever happened at Gateway this past weekend. So Christopher Bell blowing away the field. Absolute best car in that entire field. Ryan Blaney gets the lead at the end because Christopher Bell's engine starts going. Ryan Blaney runs out of gas coming to the white flag, and it's Austin Cindric who completely shakes up these playoffs, the playoff picture heading into the final 11 races of the regular season. Austin Cindric in victory lane, Ryan Blaney now all of a sudden on the playoff bubble, and Christopher Bell with, I think, another statement race. I don't know how he is not the championship favorite. That car that they have, the setup that they have for short flat tracks isn't just good. That car was fucking dominant. If you looked at the media, the Twitter account that does the median lap averages and then shows them on track where they would have finished if it would have, went green, he was a full lap ahead of everybody else. Just absolute rocket ship. And I will note, I was a little frustrated. If you follow my betting picks, you know that my strategy for stage one bets last weekend was I bet McDowell, I bet Cindric, and I bet Blaney. And I set it to where if Blaney won it, I'd break even. If McDowell or Cindric won it, I'd be good. I'd be profitable. I didn't bet Bell because I just didn't, because he's my kryptonite and I never know how to bet him. And that's my bad. But of course, it's Christopher Bell that fucking he couldn't just let McDowell win the first stage. No, he had to pass McDowell with 4 laps left in the first stage, and then McDowell just shits the bed after that because like all of NASCAR Twitter was on McDowell top 10s last weekend. I feel like every single analyst bet it. Looked amazing. He got on the pole, looked solid that first stage, and then I don't know what the fuck happened to that car, but absolute shit after that. Finished like 25th. But like I said, Austin Cindric in victory lane. We had Denny Hamlin coming home second. Brad Keselowski with another top 3 finish. Seems like that 6 car is always in the top 3 lately. Reddick and Logano finishing top 5. Then we had Austin Dillon 6th. Carson Hocevar with his first ever top 10, finishing 8th. Justin Haley comes home with a 9th place finish. We talked about him last weekend, Nick. I know you bet him 25-1 for that top 10. And then the last guy in the top 10, Kyle Larson, saves my betting card from being an absolute bloodbath, because he was at minus 120, which was just insane. I know PJ wrote him up on Action Network. He was running 11th before Blaney ran out of gas. Obviously, Blaney running out of gas dropped him to the mid-20s. But overall, about 68% said that was a good race. Nick, what do you think of Gateway? What do you think of the finish? And overall, let's not talk about the playoffs yet, because that's going to be an entire discussion on this.
Yeah, Gateway was okay. It started off pretty bad. You couldn't pass at the beginning pretty much anywhere on track, and we finally saw once track rubbered in and multiple grooves came in, you could pass, you could get through the field, different strategies, and tires even mattered. For example, like when Bell and Blaney, when they took their tires later on, they were able to make passes on other drivers with older tires. So tires mattered. You could pass. It was really hard to pass. And you even saw when Christopher Bell got to Ryan Blaney could just aero block him the whole time and just keep him behind. And, Bell was a quarter to a half a second a lap faster prior to when he caught Blaney. And then when he caught Blaney, he just couldn't pass him. So it was okay. I didn't think it was a bad race, so I voted it as a good race because, for me to vote bad race, it has to be a bad race. And I thought it was a good race. So I should say I didn't think it was a bad race. So that makes me vote it a good race. Yeah, I enjoyed the Blaney-Bell battle. I mean, that was fun to watch. It just, Bell couldn't complete the pass. And, a lot of different strategies. I always like when strategy gets involved. There's, track positions and comers and goers, as we talked about with McDowell and some others. So, yeah, and then obviously the drama at the end. So that was fine, but, wasn't anything to write home about, that's for sure.
Yeah, another thing to note about this race, we know it was Las Vegas. The last time I worked on a Sunday was Las Vegas, and my rosters went to absolute shit at the beginning of that race. Didn't happen this time around. I worked a Sunday for the first time in a while, but had that stage 1 finish. I think I'm completely done working on Sundays. Like, I'm just going to watch these races. But overall, yeah, the big thing, I think the big takeaway from, people will say like, yeah, you could pass. Eventually you could get up there and pass. But here's the thing. If you watch the first stage, if you watch McDowell up there leading however many laps, Christopher Bell clearly had the better car. It wasn't even close. And the McDowell, the fact that he couldn't pull away at all said it all. But once Bell got around him, all of a sudden Bell jumped out to a 3-second lead. Like within seconds, like not seconds, but you know what I mean. It was quick.
Yeah.
And that just shows again how difficult it is to pass with this race car. But I'm with you. Gateway is one of those. It's a forgettable race, even though it had the finish and it had the drama at the end. It's overall it's a forgettable race and a forgettable track. But overall, like I thought it was decent. I mean, the Kyle Larson thing was interesting. Kyle Busch getting a little frustrated and him being on the playoff bubble probably wasn't very smart. And obviously, he ended his day, but Larson ended up top 10. So, yeah, Gateway is one of those tracks where like I think our analysis was good, but it was just like I'm ready to move on to Sonoma. I'm ready to continue on this season. Overall, just like a decent race. Nothing crazy, even with the ending.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously Austin Cindric winning is something that maybe like when I look back on it, right? I gave out Team Penske to win at plus 550 on Green Dot Daily last Friday, which is our Action Network daily show. And I kind of said like, it's better to have Austin Cindric in there than not to have him in there, but mostly it was a Blaney and Logano bet. But I did have Austin Cindric like 0.8, 0.9%, something like that to win. And then going back and looking at it, it was like he was in the triple digit odds. So why didn't I bet his outright? It's one of those things where I'm kicking myself because we looked at the track quality metric. And last week when we were talking about it on Stacking Dennys, number 1 was Kyle Busch, 2, 3, 4 were the Penske guys. So everything was right there for me to bet Austin Cindric, and I didn't. Now, obviously the Penske bet hit if you bet that, but I just stuck with Blaney myself. So my only bet was the Blaney bet. I didn't end up betting all of Team Penske, even though I was showing significant value on it. Most of the value came from Blaney. So I was like, if you haven't already bet Blaney, bet the Team Penske bet, and better to have that extra car than not. And the extra car is the one that won the bet, which I think is pretty funny, but that's why it all goes into it, right? I mean, that 0.8% elevated my odds of Team Penske winning from 17.1% to 17.9% or something like that. So, every little bit still matters. These things still happen. Occasionally we see a triple digit winner. We saw Eric Jones win 80-1 Darlington. We saw Chris Buescher 125-1 at Bristol 2 years ago. We saw Cole Custer 500-1 at Kentucky a few years ago. So these long shots do happen, and that's why they're long shots, because they don't happen every day. But once every, couple years, or even twice in 1 year with the Eric Jones and Chris Buescher year, it can happen. So still gotta take these value bets on these long shots when we can, and not just think of them as throwaways.
Yeah, to go back to I think that's just another sign of like we don't always get it right, and we don't always fully analyze everything. Like the analysis was there. Like we knew Penske was good. I mean, you wrote up Harrison Burton on your DFS article as, hey, he's Penske affiliate. This is a good super cheap play in DFS because of that. Penske has good cars, and like I wrote up Cindric as a tournament play in DFS. Did I think he was going to win the race? No, but did I know he had the outside chance of leading laps outside of McDowell because he started so high and track position was going to be so good? Yeah. So like that's the frustrating thing, as bettors, is the analysis looking back is there. Like we both know that Cindric could have won that race. We both knew that he had a good car, and we just didn't bet it. And I don't remember what he closed at after qualifying. And I would have loved to.
I think it was in the 20s or something. Like he opened after qualifying, like McDowell did, I think in like the 60s, and then I think he closed in the 20s, and McDowell closed in depending on the book, the high single digits or low teens.
Yeah, McDowell. I saw McDowell at like 9-1 at some books, which was just ridiculous.
Crazy.
We knew he was going to probably be able to stay out front for a little bit, but there was no way he was winning that race. But Austin Cindric ends up in victory lane. So that is anything else from Gateway. Like I said, I wasn't able to watch a ton of it. Obviously, there were some surprises. Our boy Todd Gilliland got another good finish. I don't know, so I feel like Front Row Motorsports, they're kind of like opposites. McDowell, great at qualifying, struggles a little bit during the races sometimes. Todd Gilliland is fucking awful at qualifying every single week, and somehow gets into the teens like every single week. Like Gilliland started 35th, looked garbage, ends up 16th. I think this is like the 4th or 5th time over the last 6 races that Gilly has ended up and done that. Daniel Hemrick ended up with a top 20. That team suddenly becoming a little bit competitive. Zane Smith was a top 20 as well. But yeah, Justin Haley, another top 10. Like we were seeing this Ford resurgence, and I'm questioning whether, obviously Penske used to be the dominant team on short flat tracks. Joe Gibbs Racing turned into, they were the kings of them, but I feel like Penske's getting back there. And with that is bringing Ford back into it, which once again, like, we're going to talk quite a bit about the championship here, but I feel like there's once again value in betting Penske teams for the championship because they are back. Like, we know if you make it to Phoenix, if you're good at short flat tracks, you're going to have a really good chance at getting there. But heading into that's going to get us right into the playoff talk. I did an article this week for RotoBaller explaining this playoff picture now with Cindric winning, because this suddenly is hairy. Because I'll tell you what, I assumed, right now playoff bubble is sitting at Chris Buescher. He's 14th in points. That's where the bubble is, because we have Cindric and Suarez with wins. So right now, the guys in on points are Blaney has a good cushion over Bubba Wallace. I just assume he's going to get there. It's going to take a lot of bad happenings for Blaney not to get in. But Bubba Wallace is where it gets interesting. So you got Bubba Wallace, you got Buescher, who's 3 points behind Bubba. You got Briscoe, who's 13 points behind Bubba. And then you got Joey Logano, who's 17 points behind Bubba, and Kyle Busch, who's 23 points behind Bubba. Everyone else behind that, it's going to take a win to get in. But these 5 drivers are fighting for 2 playoff spots right now, and that's assuming that there's no other wins coming from someone like a Josh Berry, Carson Hocevar, Todd Gill, and Noah Gragson, Michael McDowell, who can win at road courses, or an Eric Jones or someone. Stenhouse could get in there, someone like that. Mm-hmm. But assuming there's no other super surprise winners, because Cindric was probably, like, out of everyone in the points last week when we talked about it, Cindric was probably the number one guy on our list that if he's going to shake things up, it's going to be Cindric. And of course, he goes out and does it at Gateway. So now all of a sudden, Joey Logano's on the outside looking in, and he's not having a very good season. Even though top 5 finish at Gateway, top 5 finish at Richmond, overall, everywhere else, not that great of a season. Kyle Busch not having a great season. Briscoe's having a lot better season. But to me, Bubba's inconsistency is what's not going to get him in, but I think Buescher's good. But this now, I think this now becomes a situation where we're going to see Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, those teams, knowing that they're not as good as they were last year, they're not as good this year as they could be. I think they're going to start taking some big risks to get into victory lane. They're going to take some alternate strategies.
I don't know.
And I know you disagree. I know you disagree with me, because I know you think they're going to point race it. But this is my point, though, as well. This shakes everything up. This is now becoming, like, we're going to be talking about this for the next 3 months.
Yeah, I disagree on a lot of this. We're forgetting about the fact that this cut line could move up even further. If, let's say, Michael McDowell wins this weekend. So let's say Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins Daytona, right? And let's say another driver wins the Chicago street course that's outside of the cut line or something. This could move up to Ryan Blaney as the cutoff car, or Ross Chastain as the cutoff car. No, those guys are not safe. You think Ryan Blaney's safe? I don't think he's safe. I don't think Ross Chastain is safe. He's only 12 points ahead of Ryan Blaney. I don't think Alex Bowman's safe. He's tied there with Ross Chastain. So if you're these guys, you got to be points racing. Now, you do mention maybe some guys like Kyle Busch, Joey Logano need to take risks to win. I think maybe a Kyle Busch or a Chase Briscoe could, but Logano is still in good enough equipment where he could point his way in if the cut line doesn't move up. So you kind of have to, though, assume the cut line will move up with Daytona still on the horizon. So it gets super interesting, but I don't think we're at a point yet where people need to be panicking to, I need to take risky strategies to win. That said, if you're in a spot where you definitely have a shot at winning, you should take that strategy. If you're a Chris Busch, or if you're a Kyle Busch, if you're a Chase Briscoe, a Joey Logano, especially with a race like, and we'll talk about it, Sonoma, where we get some very severe strategy splits depending on your playoff scenario. So that's definitely the case, but I don't think Ryan Blaney's safe. I don't think Ross Chastain's safe. I don't think Alex Bowman's safe. That's kind of for me, because then you go up above Alex Bowman in the standings. Keselowski and Bell have wins, and then Ty Gibbs is like way up there. So I think Ty Gibbs and up is safe. Bell and Keselowski, of course, have wins, so they're in. But I think everyone from Bowman to Kyle Busch right now is the bubble. And then, of course, anybody else winning, you're
in. I see your point. I just think even if the cut line moves up, I still think Blaney's good.
Disagree. He could blow his engine on lap 1, and then he's the bubble this weekend, even if we don't have a new winner.
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, I feel like in the overall scheme of things over these next, what are there, 11 races left in the regular season? But this adds emphasis to Daytona once again. If it almost becomes even bigger, because like we said last week, there's not that many unpredictable tracks the rest of the regular season. Obviously Sonoma strategy can come out. We also have, the fact that Sonoma was repaved. So this is going to be a kind of a completely different Sonoma coming in this weekend. But this, the overall message here is this throws such a wrench into the playoff picture that this should be the main thing that people are talking about. And I don't feel like enough people are talking about this. I understand there's 11 races left, but this is massive. This suddenly becomes a huge story. I don't care about the Larson waiver. I don't care about shit like that.
I think there's enough wild card races in here. You got 2 road courses. You got Daytona. Eric Jones can win Darlington. Josh Berry, Noah Gregson could win Iowa or New Hampshire, those kinds of things, with them being shorter, flatter tracks and those drivers being really good. Just like we saw Austin Cindric just win a short, flat track. Why can't a Noah Gregson or Josh Berry win a short, flat track or something like that? Hell, Noah Gregson's finished inside the top 6 in a bunch of races this year. Why couldn't he just randomly win one on a late restart? Like, I think there's enough going on here where we aren't just Iowa. Looking at, that's what I'm saying. Iowa, New Hampshire, Richmond. There's enough going on here where we're not just looking at all these wins coming from drivers inside the cut line or near the cut line. Like, I definitely think there's a chance Josh Berry, Noah Gregson, randomly maybe a Carson Hocevar somewhere, in like a mile and a half or something. Just there's opportunities here to where things can happen, to where an Austin Cindric 200-1 can happen. With a Noah Gregson who's maybe an 80-1, or a Josh Berry who's maybe a 60-1 at some of these tracks. Absolutely. So is it likely? No, but I think the cumulative probability over those 4 or 5 lesser wild card races is enough to say there's probably a 25% chance or a 20% chance or something that we get an extra surprise winner that we're not expecting.
Mm-hmm. And like I said last week, for the drama itself, I hope we get. I hoped we got one more through the rest of the regular season. Now that we've got one, I hope we get another one before we get to Daytona, because that's going to get nuts. And I forgot Iowa's next week. We haven't raced at Iowa. We have no idea who's going to. I mean, we have a decent idea who's going to be good at Iowa. We don't know who's actually going to be good at Iowa. And then the Sonoma thing, Pocono's turned into a fuel mileage race before, as has Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, exactly. Or a night thing, Casey Kane.
Newman. I
And
mean, yeah, we've had some like middle tier names win at Indy before for sure.
uh-huh. So I get what you're saying. Like, I'm probably oversimplifying it and saying, I just think like I'm going most likely scenario in my head. I think Blaney's gonna get in the overall scheme of things.
Well, yeah, of course, most likely, but I don't think he's safe. I don't think he's safe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so,
how crazy would it be if the only Penske car to get in was Austin Cindric?
Wouldn't it? And that was like that was the final part of my my article that I did with RotoBaller was Penske. That actually hurts Penske's championship chances because it could screw Blaney and it could definitely screw Logano. And also, I'm sorry, Austin Cindric's not a championship contender. Like, here's a question for you though. Did Austin Cindric just save his ride at Penske? Did he just stay in the Cup Series for 2 more years with this fucking win?
Yeah, he did. He did.
So that's what I think as well.
Yeah. He bought himself some time with that win for sure. And the question is, does he do anything with it, right? Or does he go back to being that 15th to 25th place driver?
I don't think it's deserved. I don't think a win like that is deserved. I understand he was very good all race, but there's 36 races on the schedule.
He was the third best car.
I know he was strong. Like,
yeah. No, I'm just saying he was the third best car, and
like, yeah, this wasn't a fluke win.
No,
this was a fluke win, but it wasn't a fluke win. Like, he had a race winning car.
Yeah, the number of times we see the circumstances third best car win is probably 10 times throughout the course of the season, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's not a fluke win from that perspective, but it's a fluke win from the perspective, to your point here, of like he's normally a 15th to 25th place guy.
Yeah. Denny Hamlin winning at Richmond was also a fluke win. Denny Hamlin wasn't the best car in that race.
Right.
But he got to victory lane. It's the exact same thing. It's just a bigger name and a guy that can actually win a championship, whereas Cindric is not.
Yeah. Speaking of Hamlin, 5 straight top 5s.
Oh, he's absolutely crushing it.
Yep.
Like that had to be one of the quietest second place finishes I've seen in a while.
Oh yeah.
Just, and he had another where they were at last week. Charlotte, he ran ended up 4th, and he was so disappointed because he said that their car was junk, and they're like, you ran top 5. You have a top 5 car, and that is, and I think that's the reason. That's another thing that people aren't talking about this year is how good Denny Hamlin's running. Like, obviously, we're talking about Larson a lot. We're talking about, the RFK cars now getting speed again. Joe Gibbs Racing, Christopher Bell. Denny Hamlin might be having the best season of his career right now. Outside, like, he's not getting all the wins, but as far as just legitimate speed week over week, every single race, I think Denny Hamlin might be running at his peak right now.
Yep, I would agree with that. To me, he's right now the best driver in the Cup Series in terms of like. I don't think in terms of like
that's
raw
a statement.
Talent. Obviously, I don't mean in terms of like raw talent. Like Kyle Larson's the best driver in the Cup Series in terms of raw talent, but I think Denny Hamlin in terms of like equipment plus talent plus experience plus consistency, all that stuff. Right now, for me, he's the favorite. In terms of like, if you just go to an average track, Denny Hamlin to me right now is the favorite in the Cup Series. And that can always change, right? We always see shifts throughout the season. But I'm saying at this point in time, we're shifted to a spot where I would take Denny Hamlin over Kyle Larson at this moment in time.
Speaking of shifts in the season, we talked about it last week on last week's episode. Hendrick Motorsports just hasn't really figured out Gateway. Highest finishing Hendrick car was Larson in 10th. We had Chase come home in 13th, Byron in 15th, and then Bowman. He lost his brakes, I think. He finished 28th. This is also the same time last year that Hendrick went down on speed. They through the summer months, they were just slower than they were at the beginning. And I will note they were a lot faster last year at the beginning of the year than they were this year at the beginning of the year. this is just something to keep an eye on. If that decrease in speed happens again this year with Hendrick, and they weren't as fast this year as they were last year, it's going to be an even more severe downgrade there.
Yeah.
So something to keep an eye on. Like obviously, one race isn't a great sample size. Byron was really good at Charlotte. Larson wasn't in Charlotte, but definitely something to keep an eye on overall. But yeah, these playoff pictures, and we're not even talking about the regular season championship. Like the guys up top, we're not talking about Denny Hamlin points leader by 21 points over Larson. I'll tell you what, I want to see Kyle Larson win this regular season points championship. Simply because we're not going to talk about the waiver yet. We're going to talk about that with the wine about it. But I want to see Kyle Larson win this regular season points championship, and then quietly Chase Elliott's third in points. Mm-hmm. He has that one win this year, which we both agreed he probably wasn't that great of a car that race. He just got the win.
Yeah. But
he's quietly third in points, just doing that Chase Elliott thing.
It's just consistency, though, because he has no finishes outside the top 20 or even 20th or worse. He doesn't have a 20th. He has every single finish has either a 0 or a 1 in the 10s. So that's just insane consistency. But he's still behind Kyle Larson, right? And Kyle Larson has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you include the fact that he didn't even start Charlotte, 5 races of 21st or worse, and he's still 6 points behind his teammate, despite the fact that his teammate has 6 21st or worse finishes, and Elliott has 0 finishes outside the top 19. So it's consistency, but it's not upside. That can only get you so far, in my opinion. In this, consistency can get you, I think, to Phoenix, but I think you need the upside at Phoenix.
Consistency isn't going to win you the championship.
I don't think so. At this point in time with how Phoenix plays out, right? Like you've got to be the best of the 4. And I haven't seen many weekends this season, even when Elliott's winning or finishing 3rd or 5th, where he's the best of a 4 best, and I just don't see that at all.
Sorry, my mouse is freezing here quick. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so Chase is 3rd in points, Truex 4th, Byron 5th. Then we go back to Reddick and Ty Gibbs, Christopher Bell. Which, by the way, Christopher Bell now has 6 stage wins to Larson's 7. Larson's leading the way with 7, but Bell has 6 stage wins, which are going to be big in the playoffs, in addition to his 2 wins. I am so on the and this is how I know Christopher Bell's not going to win this championship this year, is because I'm on him to win the championship this year. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's my kryptonite. I hate it. But Christopher Bell, 2 wins this year, two race wins, 6 stage wins. And that car's so dominant at Phoenix. I bet, I don't remember if you have a future bet on him. I got him at 10-1 after he won Phoenix. I was like, yes, immediately I'm taking him.
Yeah.
But there are a couple guys that I was looking at earlier this week when it came to championship odds, and I'd like to get your take on them, because I was a little surprised at their odds. So first, Ross Chastain, which we've talked about quite a few times this year. He's up to 40-1 over at Superbook. Mm-hmm. And you and I both liked him at 25-1 and at 30-1. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have to still like him at 40-1, but is it enough to bet him once again for the championship?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All we need, like this is all we need with Ross Chastain. He needs to make the playoffs, which I would give him a 90% probability of doing. He needs to make Phoenix, which I would give him a 20% probability of doing if he makes the playoffs, let's say. So let's do the math here. 0.9 times 0.2. And then he needs to win the championship if he makes Phoenix, which if he makes Phoenix, he wins the championship, let's say, is it a quarter of the time? I think he's probably better than the average at Phoenix, right?
That's what I would say.
Let's say like 30% of the time. So times 0.3. I'm getting like 17.5 to 1 is fair. You know?
Right? Like and
long way away from 40, even if I'm overestimating some of these chances.
Yeah. So
let's say he has a 75% chance to make the playoffs and a 10% chance to make Phoenix. And then a 30% chance of winning, then I do that math and I get 43 to 1. So like my absolute worst case scenario is like 43 to 1, 44 to 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I don't think we're at absolute worst case scenario for Ross.
You're heading this directly to where I wanted it, where I think there's a ton, like you and I both do not like betting futures. We don't I just don't like it. I don't even like betting outrights on race weekends.
Yeah.
But Ross Chastain at 40 to 1. And then Chris Buescher sitting at 40 to 1 as well. Now, obviously, Buescher is really on the bubble. There's no chance that Chris Buescher doesn't make the play. But if Chris Buescher goes out and wins in the next couple of weeks, I don't see how he doesn't drop to 15 to 20 to 1. He's been arguably better than Chastain over the last 2 combined Phoenix races. So
but the problem is I'd rather just bet Chris Buescher to win.
Phoenix?
Or just not Phoenix, just whatever races are coming up that he could win.
Whatever
right?
races are
you're
coming
like,
up.
if he goes and wins, then his championship odds drop. Well, then I'd rather just bet the race he wins.
You wouldn't rather grab him at 40 to 1 right now?
I don't think he's going to win the championship at all. I would.
You don't think Buescher has a chance to win the championship?
No.
Interesting.
No.
I feel like RFK could be there. I feel like they're on the edge of being a legitimate championship contender.
The problem is Buescher has been good but not great. It's kind of the same thing with an Alex Bowman. Do we think Alex Bowman can win the championship? He's behind Alex Bowman in the standings. Out loud.
That's because Bowman has all of the luck top 10s this year.
He has less stage points than Bowman, and he has a worse average finish than Bowman.
How the hell does he have fewer stage points than Alex Bowman?
That's what I'm saying, though. Like Buescher has a little more upside than Bowman, but his consistency isn't there. And I think you need some more consistency to carry yourself through the playoffs. Like, that's why I like Elliott to maybe make it to Phoenix, but not to win the championship. I just don't see the upside here for Chris Buescher to make the championship. But I see the consistency from Ross, right? Like Ross Chastain, we talk about Chase Elliott only, not finishing worse than 19th. Ross Chastain only has one finish worse than 21st. And
that is wild.
21st, he's 19th or better in every race, just like Chase Elliott, And the DNF that he had, Texas, he won stage 2.
The crazy thing with that is he has one top 5 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is the definition of not fucking up, but also not reaching potential.
Yeah.
Yet.
At Phoenix, he can reach that potential. The whole difference is now I know, Chris Buescher did finish second at Phoenix earlier this year, but that's kind of an aberration for him at Phoenix. He's good at Phoenix. Don't get me wrong.
Last fall, he arguably had a better car than Chastain at Phoenix last fall if they would have got a late restart.
I don't think so. Chastain had the best
I think
car
it would have been
last fall.
close. I think it would have been close. But
Chastain had the best car. Blaney had the second best car.
Second half of the race, I think it was close.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I still think Ross and Blaney are much better at Phoenix, and Buescher will probably have to potentially go up against one of them, but then he still probably has to go up against either Hamlin, Larson, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see it for him with his lack of consistency and his lack of upside. Overall, he has some upside, but it's not massive.
See, I feel like if there's a guy that is going to come out of nowhere and go on a 6-race streak of potentially winning 2 of them, it's Chris Buescher.
Yeah.
That's who I think of when that could go on a hot streak like that, which is kind of what you need to get to Phoenix.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's only going to carry you so far.
Which, I mean, yeah, we just talked about. Chase Elliott can easily get to the Final Four just based on consistency because that's how these playoffs are built.
I just think if I'm taking Ross or Buescher at 40-1, it's so far clearly easily Ross.
I think we're going to disagree. Like, we're disagreeing a lot. I think between those two, I'd go Buescher.
Close. I don't even think it's close. Like, I calculated probabilities. Like, I'm getting at worst 40-1 for Ross. If you give me like best case scenarios for Buescher, I think we're probably getting towards where my average Ross scenario was.
If Buescher was in the same points position as Chastain right now, I would take Buescher without even thinking twice. And that's putting personal bias aside.
I wouldn't.
Interesting. We should do a little side bet on the rest of the season. Who scores the most points, Buescher or Chastain?
But see, that's not what we're talking about, though.
Or like who has the most top 5 finishes the rest of the way?
I don't think points is a good way to settle it because Chastain and Buescher right now have a little bit different scenarios. Whereas like Ross, all he needs to do is go for stage points, and he's probably fine unless the cut line moves up like crazy. But Buescher, there's no guarantee, even because he is the cut line if it moves up 1. So then all of a sudden he may have to go for wins. And so it puts them in different scenarios where they're racing in different strategies. So I don't think it makes sense to compare points for the rest of the season between these two guys because they're in different situations.
What if we did like top 10 finishes or something, top 5?
Different situations.
How can we accurately look at this then?
I think we're at the point where we've seen where they are. And Ross Chastain is 49 points ahead of Chris Buescher.
I don't know.
With 16 more stage points.
Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like RFK, with as slow as they were to start this season, that Buescher and them are so much better, especially now. Maybe it's my recency bias kicking in. But Chastain hasn't been an actual contender for a win this year.
I'm not worried about it. I'm worried about Phoenix. And I think Ross right now still holds it over Buescher at Phoenix. And just getting to Phoenix, I think they have relatively equal chances if they make the playoffs. But Ross is in a much better spot to make the playoffs. So I give Ross the edge of Phoenix, and I give Ross the edge in terms of making the playoffs. So I would absolutely take Ross over Buescher to win the championship.
Okay. Average green flag speed ranking this year, Buescher's 6th, Chastain is 11th. Average running position. I think a big part of this is Buescher sucks at qualifying. Average running position, Chastain 7th, Buescher 16th. I don't know. I still think like obviously this is just like a side conversation that we're having, but I still think I would take Buescher over Chastain right now.
I wouldn't.
But speaking of another side conversation, have you ever had these surf sides?
I have not.
Oh my God. The lemonade ones, dude, they'll change your life. Which is a great segue into Wine About It this week. Do you see where I was going there?
I did.
Okay. Wine About It. I think everybody knows what this is going to be about because NASCAR forced us to talk about this once again. Kyle Larson gets the waiver. NASCAR comes out this week and says, yep, he gets the waiver after dragging it out for 10 days, week and a half. Why?
Yeah.
Why did you run this fucking shindig of bullshit just to ultimate, like, what is this like? Were you trying to like scare Larson and Hendrick into, oh, maybe don't do that, or we're actually thinking about it? There's I don't understand why they dragged this out so long just to say that he got the waiver. Other than my entire theory is they drug it out because they didn't want us talking about them calling the race early at Charlotte. If that wouldn't have happened at Charlotte and Larson would have gotten the car, they would have got granted a waiver immediately. But to go through this and act like there was a chance that Larson wasn't going to get a waiver is just like, once again, NASCAR comes off. Can they just make one decision? Can they do anything without looking like fucking idiots? One thing. That's all I'm asking. Because it's every single time that there is a major decision or something to be made, they come off looking like fucking idiots, and then they throw Elton Sawyer out there who just digs the hole deeper. Like, if there's a hole and NASCAR's dug it themselves, he walks up with the shovel into the fucking or into the interview room. He's got the shovel and he's just digging them deeper. I don't get it. It to me, the only reason that they drug it out was to get the heat off of the Charlotte finish, or the Charlotte cancellation, not cancellation, but calling the race early, because that's what everybody was talking about. And you know what everyone talked about for the next week and a half after that? We never heard about the Charlotte finish again. There was nothing in the media about the Charlotte finish. You know what they were talking about? Is Kyle Larson going to get a waiver? Yep. It's all that was talked about. So to me, it's just a slap in the face to the fan base once again, and just created a bunch of unnecessary. This scenario, this dragging it out was the equivalent of a late race bullshit caution for debris. This was a debris caution. This whole decision on Larson was a debris caution. That's all it was.
It was a
manufactured drama. Exactly, manufactured drama. That's all it was.
It was Actually, you know what it was? It was a tire rolls out into the infield and we hold it for 30 laps before we throw the caution.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're just going to continue as normal and then all of a sudden change things. Like, my issue, and so my whine about it is on this same line too, but they came on, Elton Sawyer, NASCAR, et cetera, came on and said, okay, we're granting him this waiver because he tried to come to the race and he made every effort. I'm fine with that. But then they said, but other drivers should not take this as a signal that they can go race other races and miss a cup race. And I'm like, okay, then why this one? What about why this one then? Why is it this the special one? Is it because it's Kyle Larson and again, if it was Justin Haley, would he get the waiver? Would Justin Haley have gotten the waiver? But also, is it the Indianapolis 500? Well, then why can't it be another race in another part of the season? You know, why can't Alex Bowman go miss Nashville for a dirt race? Why this? It's still not circumventing. Remember, the original intent of the waiver rule was that you don't game the system and just win a race and then sit out the rest of the regular season, chill. The whole idea is you need to earn your playoff spot by racing enough, like you used to have to do to win the championship. You used to need to race the whole season or most of the whole, Dale Earnhardt could have sat out the last couple of races sometimes and won the championship still because he'd locked it in 2 or 3 races left. Same with Jeff Gordon once or twice. Like, so the whole idea is it's okay to miss a race or two back in the day. So the whole idea is you shouldn't be able to game the system and win a championship or by getting into the playoffs by racing one race and then taking the rest of the regular season off. That defeats the purpose of a championship. But missing one race doesn't defeat the purpose of a championship if it's one race or if it's a couple races. So their explanation of, well, Larson tried to show up and it was this one race, but other drivers with other races can't do that. Makes no sense. Because it's not defeating the purpose of the initial rule anyway. If you allow Larson to, you need to allow the others to do that too for other races if it's just a one-off. Now, if they're doing it 5 times a year, sure. But if it's just one-off, you've set the precedence that a one-off to miss a race is now acceptable, but only that one-off and not other one-offs. It makes no sense.
It doesn't. It's to me, it's just ridiculous. And you know what? Here's the thing. What was the most talked about thing from media members, which are just echoing at this point? They're just echoing NASCAR's thoughts and feelings for pretty much everything. There's no media member that takes a stand on anything and says anything negative about NASCAR. But what was the main point that they made every single time when talking about the waiver? Kyle Larson brought so much publicity, outside publicity, to NASCAR. That is why NASCAR made this decision, and that is we're not going to do it for every race. Only when it benefits us. Yeah. Or potentially benefits us, are we going to do this?
Initial point of the rule wasn't even about publicity.
Yeah.
That's why it's so dumb to use that as a reason. It brought us attention. But that wasn't the original point of the waiver. It wasn't about attention. Okay, let's say, again, Alex Bowman goes and misses a race for a dirt race. That's going to bring attention too.
Yep.
That's going to create controversy too. But I know Bowman won't get the waiver.
Exactly.
Right? Again, Justin Haley did the double. It's not going to bring the attention, even if Justin Haley runs the the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 double. It's not going to bring the attention that Larson brought, so Haley wouldn't get the waiver. Like, it's completely inconsistent. It's completely bogus. I still agree with the waiver. I just don't agree with that reason.
Yeah.
I just think the whole point of waiver is you get the waiver. It's okay to miss a race for whatever reason. It just can't be egregious, excessive, too many times, that kind of thing, right? Now, if it's you missed a lot of races for an injury, that also isn't defeating the purpose of gaming the system. But the whole idea should be what is the intent of missing the race? Is it to game the system? That should be the only criteria in my mind. Are you trying to just say, I won, I'm in the playoffs, so I'm going to take it off now?
Right.
That is what the whole initial purpose of the waiver system was for. And that is what everything should be ruled on. Are you trying to game the system or not?
Yeah. The only thing that this did for Kyle Larson was hurt his championship chances because it took him out of the points lead. It potentially took away a win.
Yeah.
Exactly. 15.
Well, I'm saying relative to second place where he is now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which, well, I mean, and he could still, he's only 6 points ahead of Elliott. He could easily fall to third.
Yeah.
But it could cost this a very good chance that this could cost him the regular season championship.
Yeah, it didn't cost him 15 playoff points. I'm saying it cost him 5.
Oh, yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah. I thought you were saying that the win was 15 or not 15. But yeah, this only hurt him. So I don't know. Just this was all stupid.
Race is already self-punishing.
Exactly. I don't get it. But I'm glad I'm glad that they finally just announced that he had the waiver though, because if they would have dragged this out any longer, I think I would have went nuts. I'm so sick of hearing about and talking about whether Larson deserved the waiver and everything else.
Yeah.
So good job, NASCAR, for making a decision that we all knew was coming a week and a half ago, but you dragged it out a week and a half just to.
The last part of the whine about it should be, why just wasn't this decided back in preseason when we knew he was going to do this?
And I saw tweets like that. That was, maybe waivers should be predetermined. Maybe they should have got the waiver before they actually did it. I don't know. I mean, you outside of injury, something serious like an injury, you obviously can't get a pre-waiver. But
right,
honestly, I feel like most people's thoughts on Larson and the waiver status was that they pretty much knew that they were getting a waiver before they even went and actually attempted it. My opinion, my thought process was, they already got the word that they're getting the waiver. That's why they're doing this. Yeah. And that's why they're making the decision that they are with the rain. I didn't. And overall, I don't think there was any chance that NASCAR was going to deny the waiver there, because that'd be way too much negative press, especially if Larson went on to win the championship.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I know NASCAR mentioned that they got backed into a corner a little bit. Well, that's what they fucking deserve. They all of their bullshit, all of their decisions that they make, they deserve. So, as always, thank you to Luvabella Winery for sponsoring Wine About It and this podcast. Make sure you check them out, luvabella.com. Link is always in the description of these videos. And then the Brew Kettle, also check them out. They got a new website. Their new website launched, I believe. And they're coming out with a bunch of new beers.
Yummy.
I can't wait to try them. I know we should be getting a new shipment coming in. And you know, the Marissa got back to me and she was like, I don't think we have any peanut butter porter left. I'm like, oh, it was my favorite, my absolute favorite. Please find some anywhere. It was so good, but I'm sure I'll find another good one. It's just like Luvabella. We both have about 15 different, not 15, but several different wines that we really like from them. Yeah. So yeah, make sure to check them out, luvabella.com. We're on to Sonoma. A newly repaved Sonoma, which throws a wrench into, I'm going to be honest, this happens when I did not have a great betting week at Gateway. It was a little frustrating. I loved my bets going into Gateway. Okay. But
I did too.
like a fighter, if you get punched in the mouth, you take a step back a little bit. Unless you're an idiot, and then you just lean in further. I don't do that. I'm not a bettor like that. I'm not a double down to get back to even type of bettor. So I'm taking a little step back this week. I haven't found much I like. There's some things that have stood out to me that I like, but overall, how much do you think that this repave at Sonoma is going to come into play of how much is it going to change the race? We're not getting a different track layout. They're not changing anything with the track layout I think they did that like 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. But this track's repaved. It's got a ton of grip. I think so it was Truex, Chastain, and Josh Berry that tested on this new surface already. And I believe they were running like 2.5 seconds faster than the track record during that test. So speeds are going to be super high. Overall, though, how is this going to change the race on Sunday? We get a practice on Friday afternoon, and then they qualify Saturday afternoon. So they're changing up the schedule this week as well, where it's not practice right into qualifying. We get a day in between. How is this new track composition going to affect this race, you think?
So it'll affect it less on like which specific drivers are better or worse. I do think there's some subtleties to where, certain drivers manage their tires better or not. I think it helps a driver maybe like A.J. Allmendinger, who I think can take a lot of advantage on like extra grip, which I think will help him massively, just because of his style, technique, etc., of how he races road courses. I think he'll be the one that benefits most from a driver perspective. But from that all I think is very minor. I think there's very few drivers it'll affect significantly. What I think it more affects, obviously, is just the strategy of the race. Track position is just monstrous. We've heard things like this is now you basically only can take one line through every corner. So while there is extra grip on all the parts of the corners, it's just the main line with the new grip is easily going to be the main line. The extra grip on a second groove is, while it's nice to have, it is not going to be as beneficial as needing to brake more, needing to get off throttle more, and all that stuff on a main line. So it makes it a track that is even harder to pass than it already is. And Sonoma's already the hardest track to pass at of the road courses. Mm-hmm. And now it just makes it even harder. So I think this is going to be an absolutely terrible race from a race quality perspective. And it makes track position uber important, which I think will change some bubble drivers' team strategies a little bit. To your point about a guy like Kyle Busch, I don't think you points race this race. I think you do the optimal strategy in this race, because if you're in that top 5, 6, 7 by near going into stage 3 or whatever the final stint is, the final pit window after you make your final pit stop, if you're in that top 3, 5, 7, you're probably staying there. You're probably not, unless you have a problem, you're probably staying there. it's going to be so hard to pass. So it puts an extra emphasis on track position more than there already is. And so I think you see a few extra drivers take the optimal strategy. But that said, I have some very specific thoughts on, bets in this race and which drivers may or may not be on various strategies, etc.
Does this also like with track position being so important? Does this open the opportunity to two tire stops and changing everything up there? Like this is, I think there's a lot of aspects of these strategy calls that could come into play because like, and this is where we've seen in the past, like these past couple races, if you follow, us two or Greg Mathern, he bets some of these. Like you'll usually see us take like a Denny Hamlin or someone to win stage one, even though they qualified back in like 20 something, because they're just going for that stage point, and it opens up these betting markets to, if I think Hamlin last race was like 40-1 to win stage one or something. It just opens up the chances that they do that. But yeah, like does the repave make you a little more hesitant to bet this week just based on that uncertainty? Or is it also, I feel like the books are pretty tight this week. Like there's some stuff, like I said, there's a few things out there that I like, but I'm not seeing a ton that I love.
Yeah. I found a couple bets that I like, but yeah, I'm not going crazy here, but I definitely have some bets that I like here. But I'm not worried about it. Like I'm not sitting here afraid of betting Sonoma, A, because of what happened last week, and B, because there's a track repave. That hasn't changed my feelings. I just, if there's value, I bet. If there's not value, I don't bet. That's how I am every week, regardless of anything. Now, uncertainty could play into that. So if I'm showing thinner value, I'm less likely to bet when there's more uncertainty than I am if there's more certainty. I'll be happier to take thinner value bets if there's more certainty in what I'm betting on. If I've seen, our 1800th mile and a half, something like that on a track we've been to a billion times that hasn't changed its surface, versus here, we've changed surface, but other than that, we haven't really changed anything. And it's still a road course. We still know he's going to be good at road courses overall.
Right.
So for me, it doesn't change anything. I actually think there's even more certainty now that we have the repave, because it's going to mean if you're running up front, you're probably staying up front. So the only thing that it creates in terms of uncertainty is the strategies. How do you get up front? We're still going to see AJ Allmendinger on the optimal strategy to win the race. We're still going to see, Denny Hamlin on the optimal strategy to win the race, unless he wants to take a playoff point, but that'll kind of depend on where he starts. And so, we can't really answer that now, but, I'm not afraid to bet it. I don't think this changes a whole lot for me.
Last year we saw Truex just smash the field. Do you think he's should once again be the favorite this weekend, or do you think this repave kind of? I saw an article that this kind of hurts Truex actually, and that was their take on it. Which we have, but at the same time he did the tire test, which I think helps Truex. Like he has extra track time on this new surface that people don't, and same with Ross Chastain.
Yep. Truex is one of those that's really good at managing his tires. We saw that in Bristol. Same with Denny.
And the old Sonoma had some of the highest fall off.
A lot of tire management. Yeah.
Yep.
And there was, 2 years ago with Sonoma, it was the Toyotas were just fucked on road courses in general. And it was even worse on fall off tracks. They just had an issue with the way their tires wore at road courses and they handled terribly. So they ended up wearing, because they had to use more, I don't know what the term is, but they had to work harder in the turns, which wears the tires more. And at even higher tire wear tracks, it was even more pronounced. So they fixed that last year. And obviously Toyota's back to where they normally are at road courses, and the drivers that are good there were normally good, But now that they've taking the tire wear out of it, it doesn't help those guys that are really good at managing their tires, the Truexes, the Hamlins, etc. So it maybe helps a little bit a guy like Ty Gibbs, who I know had a lot of speed early in that Sonoma race last year, but kind of fell off on those long runs, similar with Tyler Reddick, although Reddick is good at high tire wear as well. His first win at Road America was before the repave. His first road course win, I should say, was before the repave. Was just super high wear as well. So, for me, maybe it helps like a Ty Gibbs. I think it helps an Allmendinger in terms of like the grip levels. He can do more with just his technique and his road course prowess. But overall, I don't think it really changes a whole lot. But it could hurt somebody like a Truex. And Ross tested there. I think it never hurts to test. But at the same time, Ross is in a spot where he has to points race. If he just points races, he's into the playoffs. He gets points. Even if the cut line moves up and up and up, as long as he does what he's been doing and grabs stage points, he will be in the playoffs. So that's why I don't like betting Ross here this weekend, even though I like him. Like, I love him at this track. He's always been good here. I like the fact that he tested, but he has no incentive to go for the win. He absolutely has to stage point, and then just get consistent finishes in that 10th to 15th place range, and he'll be fine.
So it's funny that you mentioned Chastain, because when top 10 lines dropped, he was the first one I noticed. First I was looking at Buescher. He opened at minus 150, so I wasn't super. I didn't like that. But Buescher or Chastain opened at plus 140. He's still at plus 140 over on Bet365. And I know Greg Mathern's on him for a top 10, as is, I believe PJ is as well. 3 straight top 10s for Ross at Sonoma. And then, again, he had that test, which, by the way, last week at Gateway, I forgot to mention, Logano tested at Gateway. And I think that's a reason that Penske was so fucking good, was because of that.
I mean, they're just always good there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true as well, but that definitely didn't hurt them, to have that test on their belt. But do you like Chastain at plus 140? That's if I'm going to make a bet right now,
I haven't bet it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I haven't bet it yet.
If I liked it, I would bet it.
Yeah.
It's not to say I don't like it. I just don't like it enough to bet it.
It's one of those, like, I'm going back and forth.
Ross Chastain is in that perfect spot to not go on the optimal strategy. Like, Bowman, and Blaney, maybe, I would say Blaney in terms of the standings as well. Ross, Blaney, and Bowman are the 3 that would benefit the most from points racing this weekend because of that gap they have over the next driver, which is Bubba Wallace, and the fact that, like, 2 winners outside the playoff line right now, I could see. It's really hard to have 3. But you don't, if there is a third, or if you have a bad race or 2, all of a sudden you're in that Bubba Wallace spot and you could be out of the playoffs. So I think this is the number 1 set of drivers that'll be points racing this weekend are Bowman, Chastain, and Blaney. Unless Ross has like an absolutely winning car, he's starting up front. He's got a car that can win. But if he's sitting in that 6th place range where he has been the past couple years, I think you just take the points and you just take the points and you just take the points, and strategy be damned. You take your stage points and take your 12th place finish if you have to.
One thing I will note for sure is this happens pretty much every time we go to somewhere where strategy is involved or can be involved. We're going to see at least 1 or 2 crew chiefs make a very head scratching strategy. And that is just another unknown for this race that we can't predict who it's going to be, because there's always just one that you're just like, what the actual fuck are you doing? And we saw, this is the second road course race of the season. First one was Circuit of the Americas. William Byron won from the pole, led 42 of the 68 laps there. But overall, I would say Christopher Bell had the best car in that race, had the best strategy in that race. If he didn't have a shitbag teammate, he would have won that race. Ty Gibbs held him up for however long there in that final stage where he couldn't go track down Byron. Speaking of teammates, though, going back a little bit here to Gateway, did you see the clip of Truex pushing? The only reason Bell finished where he did was because Truex fucking pushed him.
Yep. That was cool.
Do you think Ty Gibbs would have done that
I think
in the same scenario?
I think he would have if he was told to. But I think for Truex, it was just more natural. Like, oh yeah, I can do this. Whereas like Ty Gibbs, I think would have been like, you have to tell him to do that.
Because Truex isn't a selfish prick like Gibbs is.
I think Truex can be selfish, but I think in this spot, Truex knew he had nothing to gain by being selfish.
Mm-hmm. I saw the opportunity to take a shot at Ty Gibbs. I'm never going to pass that up.
Well, of course.
But yeah, Byron, Bell, and Gibbs, top 3 at Coda earlier this year. They also started 4th or better, all 3 of them. Reddick was the other guy that started in the top 4. He finished 5th. We had Bowman come home 4th. Allmendinger was 6th. Chastain, Buescher, Kyle Busch, Truex rounding out the top 10. Notables outside of the top 10. Chase Elliott finished 16th. SVG was in that race. He had, I believe, brake issues at the end. He came home 20th. Obviously, we have Allmendinger in that 16 car this weekend. Who else did not end up very... Michael McDowell, 3rd in stage 1. He finished 38th. He had power steering issues. Larson was 17th. But overall, looking at the... Oh, shit, I didn't have that tab open. Looking at the odds right now for Sonoma heading into the weekend, we got Truex is the favorite. Best odds of 6-1. We got Larson at 7-1. Ty Gibbs sitting at 9-1. You can get Christopher Bell at plus 850. You can get Reddick at plus 950. Chase Elliott's at 9. William Byron's at 9. Sorry. A little bit gap then back to Buescher and Allmendinger at 14. You can get Allmendinger at 18 over at Superbook. And then the McDowells, the Hamlins, they're sitting there in the 17s, 20 range. Mm-hmm. Anything glaring here that you are surprised that some guys are maybe shorter than they should be, or in your mind, or longer as far as the outrights for this race coming up at Sonoma?
Yeah, I'm right in line with Truex being number 1, but I don't have him at 6-1, right? I have him at 11.2% to win, which is whatever that ends up being. I think it's like 8-1 or something. Let me pull up my calculator. I'm having trouble spelling it. 1. Yeah, I have him at 8-1, pretty much is fair. So even though I have him as the favorite, I don't have anybody that should be better than 8-1, and Truex and Larson are both better than 8-1 in terms of the odds. But other than that, it looks kind of like you'd expect. Now, interestingly enough for me, in my model, the guy we've been talking about a lot on this episode, and we had a nice spirited debate about, is in the top 4 in my model, and that is Chris Buescher.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like him at whatever price you can get him. 14 looks like right now. I haven't checked some other books, but maybe there's a 16 or so out there. I know Stations Casino in Nevada had a 15. So yeah, I like Chris Buescher. If you go down the list, Denny Hamlin is 20-1. I have him at 5.87% to win. That's better than 20-1, but it's pretty thin. I have Bowman about 3.5% to win. He's 60-1. So I don't hate betting maybe his top 10 equivalent or top 5 equivalent. I know Jim Sonis bet him as well. I think it was either top 5 or 10. So definitely have some value on Alex Bowman further down there. And then AJ Allmendinger for me. 18-1 at the Superbook is too long. So yeah, that's where I have value on right now. And Michael McDowell. I have value on Michael McDowell as well. So those are the places I have value. That's a lot of drivers that I have value on. It's like 5 drivers.
So I will note something about McDowell. Same point that I made last week if you remember back, my favorite bet last week was McDowell top 10 to kick off the weekend, or to kick off the week. Like, I loved it as soon as odds dropped. And that's his qualifying prowess this year. Mm-hmm. If track position is going to be huge at Sonoma, you have to like McDowell because of like he's a fringe top 5 road courser in the series right now. So if you throw in track position needs to be good, he's a good qualifier now. Yeah, I'm right there with you. You have to like McDowell.
Yeah, you say French
Couple
top
of
5. I have him 7th in my model right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's right there. Couple of guys. I'm with you there on Allmendinger. I feel like I was going through before this episode to get my 36 or 36 pick, and I considered Allmendinger, but I'd love to know if he's racing because he's always been better at Watkins Glen than he is at Sonoma. Like Watkins Glen has always been his preferred. Which road course on the schedule do you think is now the best comparable to Sonoma with this repave?
Yeah, probably Coda, just because it has a slower section in there. You know, it's got some fast spots, but it's also got that like stadium section, which is really slow, has a lot of twists and turns. Certainly wouldn't say Chicago Street Course because that's a whole different beast. Wouldn't really say the Roval, and Glen has a lot of faster corners, so I think probably Coda right now.
Which, like I said, that's where we were at most recently.
But I don't think any of them are good comparables for Sonoma.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Sonoma is Sonoma, like overall.
Yeah.
So again, track position. We saw Byron win from the pole at Coda. Track position was big at Coda. One guy or track position has been his friend at Sonoma, who has won the pole here, I think, 5 times. Kyle Larson. You know, another aspect of, you know, if he can qualify well there. But there are 2 guys in the field this week making their first ever Cup starts, and I'm a little surprised at how short their odds are. Cam Waters. Oh, wait, is that right?
Yep, Cam Waters.
Cam Waters and Will Brown. So
yep.
Will Brown is driving the 33 for Richard Childress Racing. Mm-hmm. Cam Waters is in the 60 for RFK. I saw some books have Waters at like 30-1, which I'm sorry. I just don't like. I feel like books have gotten so influenced. I mean, they obviously SVG winning last year was like big for bettors, but like, do we really think that Cam Waters or Will Brown is going to win this race or like be there? Why to me, not? Like guys Why making not? Their first Cup Series starts, it's so rare to even be competitive.
SVG made his first start and won.
SVG's the lone person that's been competitive. Every single other one of these guys that has come over to race have been shit.
All those guys are the same series that SVG came from. Same series as Scott McLaughlin for IndyCar, right? These guys are all from that exact same series, the supercars over in Australia. So I don't see a reason why they can't if SVG can. And if we look at the current standings, Will Brown's leading that series right now. Cam Waters is 4th in that series right now. You know what SVG was doing when he won his first race at Chicago? He was leading that series.
I hope I'm wrong. I like seeing new blood, but to me, SVG, it was the definite outlier of all these guys coming over and making these starts, and I just don't see these guys being competitive at all. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong.
I completely disagree.
I'll gladly take that L if I'm wrong.
We know how good Chris Buescher is here. Why can't a guy who's
I understand the potential's there.
At this, why not a guy who's an expert at this in the same equipment be just as good as Chris Buescher?
I understand the potential's there, and like I said, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. I feel like these guys get so overhyped.
Like, I actually think because of the specific next-gen car we have now, which are a lot more like supercars than the previous generation of car, I actually think it makes the gap a lot easier for first-time drivers from supercars specifically than than it would have been in the past. This is such an SVG like style deal here, where you got two guys that are running near the top of the standings in a car that's relatively similar to the supercars in terms of a NASCAR car that we've never seen be as similar to supercars as it is now. I'm not saying they're the same at all by any means. I'm just saying compared to past iterations of Cup Series cars, it's more the same. So do I think they're win? No, of course not. I don't think they're going to win. But am I going to say they have no shot at winning? Absolutely not. I definitely think they have a shot at winning, especially Cam Waters in the 60 car, I would say. But I mean, heck, Kyle Busch could be competitive in an RCR car. Why can't Will Brown as well?
There's only one way we're going to find out.
Because of the SVG deal that books are making these guys short. But I don't know if they're that short. Like Cam Waters is 66-1 right now. 66-1.
I think when odds dropped, I saw him at 30, and that's what is sticking in my head. And maybe I saw it or something. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, because I'm seeing that now. So like Will Brown on Superbook is 40.
Yeah.
And then Cam Waters is 80.
Yeah. And the reason Will Brown is shorter right now than Cam Waters is because Will Brown leads Cam Waters in the supercars standings, I would bet. But I think Cam Waters is in better road course and maybe even overall equipment in that RFK stuff. So I almost think these odds are flipped. And here's the other thing. If we look at Will Brown, his teammate Brock Feeney is second in the standings. So I think that's just an equipment thing right now, why Will Brown is ahead of Waters in the supercar standings. Because if we look at Cam Waters, who's fourth in the standings, and compare him to his teammate Thomas Randall, Randall's ninth in the standings. So like Cam Waters is kicking the shit out of his teammate, whereas Will Brown and Brock Feeney, yeah, Will Brown's ahead of Brock Feeney. He's better than Brock Feeney, but they also just have an equipment advantage, a massive equipment advantage right now in the supercars. So I think it's a lot closer between Cam Waters and Will Brown than we think. And let's just go back to the last couple years. So 2023, 2022, Cam Waters finished 6th and 2nd, and Will Brown in the standings, I should say. And Will Brown finished 5th and 14th. So, last year, basically the same. 2 years ago, it was a huge advantage for Cam Waters. So, but obviously Will Brown was in different equipment and stuff too. So it's tough to say. I'm not an expert in the supercar series, but my whole point is right now that I kind of don't hate Cam Waters at 66-1, but it's very subjective because I don't have a way to accurately data model that, we only have one data point or two data points, I guess, with Brody Kostecki, who also came over from supercars and was also in RCR equipment. But those are really our only data points is SVG and Brody Kostecki. I think I'd rather just go with Cam Waters at 66 if I were to pick one of the two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bet365 has Will Brown at 28-1.
He's 8. Yeah, Cam Waters is 80-1.
80-1 on Superbook. Yeah.
I might take a little flyer.
Did you just talk yourself into
on a top 3?
Yeah.
Right, because they're going to be on the optimal strategy. They're on race winning strategy. Actually, I might just bet Cam Waters 18-1 right now for top 3.
Did you bet it?
Yeah. I did.
Oh boy. But yeah, so like we talked about, Chastain sitting out there at plus 140 for a top 10 finish. Another guy I just saw, Action is pulling Chris Buescher top 10 at minus 139. And if I had to make a bet right now, I'm betting that, because you look at the last 11 road course races, he hasn't finished worse than 11th. Chris Buescher is a top 10 machine at road course races. I feel like I have to bet. If I'm betting anything, I'm betting that right now.
I agree with you. I haven't bet it yet. I'm waiting for other books to drop their top 10 odds. But I agree with you. Actually, let's see, Chris Buescher, yeah, -180 at FanDuel.
Yeah, -1. Like, man, I was fringe on -150. Now -139. I feel like is good enough for me to bite. My only issue is, and I guarantee I'm overthinking this, is the track position thing and his inability to fucking qualify. Because you look at road course races, even this string of good finishes that he's on road courses, he hasn't started better than 13th in the last 4. He's qualified 20th, 13th, and 17th. Before that, he was 7th at Sonoma, and then started 32nd at Coda and 21st at Charlotte Roval. But I will note his last 2 starts at Sonoma are 7th and 3rd. So maybe he has qualifying figured out at Sonoma. Yeah, if I'm betting anything right now, it's Buescher -139 top 10. I might lock that in right now. Live here on Stacking Dennys, live on YouTube.
Well, and here's the other thing. Let's go back before the next gen era. Right, he finished 16th at Sonoma in a season where he finished 19th in the standings. 2020, we didn't have a Sonoma race. 2019, when he was with JTG Doherty Racing, finished 16th at Sonoma in a season where he finished 20th in the standings. 2018, finished 12th at Sonoma in a season where he finished 24th in the standings. 2017, finished 19th at Sonoma, a season where he finished 25th in the standings. So the guy just consistently outperforms at Sonoma relative to where he is in the standings. And right now he's 14th in the standings. So if he's outperforming where he is in the standings, he's a top 10 car.
Mm-hmm. I'm betting right now. I'm locking it in. Like I said, I was right on the edge with -150, -139 got me there.
Yep.
Thank you, Bet Rivers. Place bet. Bet has been placed. Yeah, it's not going to show.
I like Austin Cindric this weekend too. I think this will benefit him. I think this repave is going to help road course racers. And Austin Cindric hasn't been super good here, but I think this could help him. I think this repave could help him. He did finish 5th at Sonoma in 2022. Remember that. And this is one where he's raced at Sonoma a lot before he even raced in NASCAR. He raced some sports cars here, those kinds of things. So I think this is going to be a very good track for Austin Cindric, and he's going to be on the race winning strategy now. So I really like Austin Cindric this weekend. I would say I'm down a little bit on your Bowmans, your Chastains, and that's where it's like I'm showing value on Bowman to win, but knowing he has to point race, like I'm not betting it kind of thing.
I was say any modeling is not really taking into account the
strategy,
the weird strategy aspect of it that people could have.
Yeah. So I just think with strategy coming into play, I think I like, maybe something like a Cindric over a Bowman or a Ross Chastain type deal.
Are there any head-to-heads out there that you like?
Matchups. That's what I'm saying. Like if I haven't looked, but if there are, like I would take probably Cindric over a looks like FanDuel is Cindric versus Chastain. I'd take Cindric at plus money over Chastain, I think. I need to fully vet head-to-heads before I make any bets, but like just shooting off the cuff, I think I would take maybe a Cindric at plus money over Chastain. Now, my model wouldn't necessarily agree, but that's one of those, like, I'm willing to go against the model if there's close enough and if there's strategy implications, right? And I think the strategy implications are Ross probably, unless he has a top 3 car, probably needs to be points racing. And Austin Cindric can just go on that optimal strategy. And then you just add that, like, the anecdotal stuff of like the repave. I think the repave is going to help Cindric more than it helps a Ross Chastain.
How do you think the repave is going to help a guy like Ty Gibbs?
Lower tire wear, tends to kill his tires early in runs, and younger guys tend to do that, right? They tend to destroy their tires just because they race so hard the whole race, the whole stint. But I think doesn't help Ty Gibbs as much as it hurts guys like Truex's advantage of managing longer tires. They don't get that advantage as much.
That makes sense. Ty Gibbs is also running the Xfinity race.
Yeah. Ty Gibbs is a really good road course racer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't see any reason for Ty Gibbs to point race here based off the standings, but that doesn't mean he won't, right? It could be one of the spots where JGR just really wants to secure him, get him in there, and not have to worry about it. So I could see him points racing, even though I don't think he has to.
And that's just it's the frustrating thing about, road courses in general is all of this strategy, just because it's an unknown. It's kind of like a super speedway race in a way, where there's just always that unknown in the back of your head, which affects things for sure. So, anybody else you want to talk about when it comes to Sonoma before we get to our picks?
No, I think we're pretty good here. I mean, we touched on the guys I have value on and some strategy stuff. I don't really have too much else to discuss here. I don't really see any of these rookies or younger guys. I'm not talking Cam Waters and Will Brown, but I'm talking like your Gregsons, Berries, those kinds of drivers. Carson Hosvar. None of them are amazing road course racers, so I don't think they really factor in a ton. And maybe a guy like Todd Gilliland pops off now that he's in Tier 1 Penske equipment and occasionally can be good at road courses. Justin Haley could certainly have a very good day. I think there's, some guys that could shine, but it's all the same stuff. If Ricky Stenhouse Jr. gets track position, he could hold on to it, that kind of thing.
Here's a question for you. Daniel Suarez, previous winner at Sonoma.
Mm-hmm.
He has a win in the bag, so there's no reason for him to points race.
Right.
He's an interesting one this week. They've been
much
down on speed lately, but
road courses are the great equalizer.
Yep.
You can have drivers in bottom half teams like AJ Allmendinger with JTG or with Colleague, bottom third teams even, and win races or get near winning races. And Daniel Suarez right now is mid-tier, middle bottom maybe in terms of speed, but part of it could be testing. Some of it's been bad luck, like with Charlotte. Certainly this past weekend wasn't great, but and Coda, another really good track for Suarez, and I think maybe is the best comparable right now to Sonoma. We could definitely see Daniel Suarez have a ceiling day. And if we look at my track quality metric, which we haven't talked about yet, but Daniel Suarez is fifth in my track quality metric, meaning not that he's the fifth best driver here, but just he has the fifth best track performance relative to his average track. So number one is Michael McDowell. Number two is AJ Allmendinger. Number three, Chris Buescher. 4, Truex. 5, Daniel Suarez. 6, Chase Elliott. 7, you'll never guess this guy.
Give me like a hint that's not going to give it away. Austin Dillon.
No, but
fuck
is a former teammate of Austin Dillon's.
Tyler Reddick?
No.
Why am I blanking on Austin Dillon's teammates right now?
Daniel Hemrick.
Oh, fuck off. I would have went through all the full timers and the part timers before I got to Daniel Hemrick.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. I would have never guessed that.
Yep, exactly. So, I'm not betting on Daniel Hemrick or anything. I just thought that was funny. I got down to that point in the list, but no, Suarez is a top 5 driver in terms of like where he performs at Sonoma relative to his baseline track. Now the other,
what was the top 5 again?
McDowell's number 1, Allmendinger's number 2, Buscher's number 3, Truex number 4, Daniel Suarez number 5. I think that all makes sense, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But here's another metric that I'm looking at, and that's how good is Sonoma for you compared to your average road course? And that's different than compared to your average track, right?
Yep.
So McDowell actually drops here because Sonoma is actually worse for him than his average road course, just because he's right. If you have like Michael McDowell's average here, well, all of McDowell's road courses are up here. So then if you just look at the road courses, Sonoma's down here for McDowell, and it makes him worse. So if we look at how good is Sonoma for you compared to your average road course, number 1, Martin Truex Jr. Number 2, Brad Keselowski, because he's terrible at road courses. So the fact that he's not bad at Sonoma is just an average track for him. Means he's number 2, but that's not an endorsement on Keselowski. Number 3, Chris Buescher, and we know he's good at road courses and he's good here. So I'm pretty high on Chris Buescher this weekend.
I can tell.
Yep. And number 7,
I got like
the same guy who was number 7 in the other metric, Daniel Hemrick.
So you're telling me this is the week to pick Daniel Hemrick at 31 for 31.
And Suarez is number 9 in this metric.
Is he?
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's a good lead though to 36.
That is
picks to win.
That is going to get us into our picks to win in 36 for 36. Like you said, my turn to go first on both of these, which I spent a little bit of time before trying to figure out what I was going to do. So last week at Gateway, I had Hamlin, you had Bell, you had the best car. He finished 7th. Denny Hamlin finished 2nd. I'm still searching for that second win with our picks. Again, we are neck and neck in average finish. I'm at 10.27. You are at 10.67. We're not having bad years. I'm going first with picks to win.
Didn't I pick Bell last week?
Yeah, that's what I said.
And I should have won that. Damn it.
Should I start marking those that
I know
you should have won?
Should have won.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I'll tell you what, and I'm considering picking this guy for my 36 for 36 as well. I think Ty Gibbs wins this week. I'm going Ty Gibbs gets his first win on the new Sonoma racetrack.
I like it.
My pick to win.
I like that pick. I'm not going to pick it, but I like that pick. Very much. Very much like that pick.
It's also not going to be my 36 for 36 because I got that locked in as well.
Right.
I am like not indecisive this week. I'm going.
So my issue is I've already used Chris Buescher, and I really like him this weekend. I've not used Michael McDowell, and I really like him this weekend.
Wait,
he needs to win.
Aren't you making your pick to win?
Oh, yeah, pick to win. Duh. I'm already on 36 or 36. Well, I mean, why can't I pick McDowell to win? No, I'm just kidding. I do like McDowell this weekend. I do like Suarez this weekend. I do like Buescher this weekend. Tough. AJ Allmendinger.
I figured you'd go that.
I want somebody who I know is going to be on the winning strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not 100% convinced Chris Buescher will be, even though I really like him this weekend. And I think he should be.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100% convinced, especially if he qualifies maybe a little worse, which we know. We talked about. He said he's average start of 5.0 here in the next gen era, but doesn't guarantee he'll be up there. So for me, it's like Allmendinger, McDowell, Truex, but I think while I like Truex, I do think the repave could bring him back to the field a little bit. Kind of considering Austin Cindric to win, honestly. Back-to-back wins for Cindric. How crazy would that be?
You're gonna pick Austin Cindric to win.
No.
In the picks to win.
No.
What?
I'm taking Allmendinger. It makes much more sense. But I don't hate Austin Cindric to win this weekend.
Man.
He's going to be on the winning strategy. 100%. As will Cam Waters and Will Brown.
I like your strategy. Allmendinger, yeah. I was thinking about picking him in 36 for 36, but I like someone else better. And I like Allmendinger better at Watkins Glen, but I don't know what his schedule is either. Like whether he's actually racing Watkins Glen or not. Can I change my pick?
Yes.
No, I'm sticking with it. I was going to go Christopher Bell.
Yeah. I'll say if you changed your pick, I was going to go Ty Gibbs.
No, I'm going to stick with Ty Gibbs. I think Gibbs gets his. I just got done saying how I'm not indecisive this week. I'm going Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is winning this race. Calling it now.
I like the pick, and I'm going Allmendinger.
I don't like the odds. I don't like Gibbs at 9-1.
No.
I like Allmendinger at 18-1. I do not like Gibbs at 9-1. But I think Gibbs gets his win. Okay. 36 for 36. Whew. There's a lot of ways we can go here. You know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 road course races left. We both have Chase Elliott left. We both have Kyle Larson left, who's been a great qualifier here, but questionable. We both have Truex left. We both have Bell left. Byron. We both have McDowell left. Just looking at all the ones that we have left. We both have Ty Gibbs left. Daniel Suarez. Lock me in. Chris Buescher, Sonoma.
That's
Using
a good one. I would take him if I had him available. But the only thing, again, that concerns me is will he be on the winning strategy or will he points race? But if he points races, that's good for 36 for 36. So you get the best of both worlds there.
I like it both ways. When you what set me over and convinced me was your metrics on how much better he is here than other road courses and his qualifying at Sonoma compared to everywhere else. He's been good at qualifying in Sonoma. I hope that continues. If it does, I think he's going to be on the race winning strategy, and if not, he's going to be on the point strategy. So yeah, I like best of both worlds here. Give me Chris Buescher this weekend at Sonoma. And like I said, I bet him live here on the show for a top 10. So I'm all in on Buescher this weekend, which if history shows anything, he's wrecking lap 3. He's like calling it now, wrecking lap 3. But yeah, I'm going Buescher. I need after, which by the way, we didn't even recap last week. You had Logano, who got you 39 points, and I had Josh fucking Berry, who got me 1 point. Oh, irritated. I also did think about, I got my Truex shirt on because I came into this show. I was gonna go Truex in 36 for 36, but I'm gonna save him. And side note, if you don't pick the 16, I'm curious at what you're saving the 16 for.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and whether he's on your radar or not.
Well, so Allmendinger is racing the Roval, and that's his best track. Now they are changing the layout of the Roval, so there's that to consider. SVG is going to be in the 16 as the defending race winner of the Chicago Street Course.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, at Watkins Glen, it is going to be SVG as well. So I don't think I have to pick Allmendinger this weekend. Because there's 3 races, 3 road courses, I can still pick him. Or SVG. And 2 of those, they're the defending race winners. But you also have to consider the points aspect, right? Like, this is an interesting spot where, like you said, with Buescher, or with your Buescher pick, I should say, he could points race, which actually could help you in this if he does. So it's a weird spot. It's a very weird spot. And, you know, I'm looking at at that metric that I was just talking about, like how good are you at this road course compared to other road courses? And Busher again stands out here, but I've already used him. But one guy that is in the top 10 that we haven't mentioned in terms of this metric is a guy we have talked about here. And that's Ross Chastain. And where else am I going to use him if I don't use him at Phoenix in the championship? And what are the odds he's in the championship at Phoenix? Well, we just talked about that. It could be as low as 7.5%. Could be higher than that. It could be 27%, but it's somewhere in that 7.5 to 27% chance of making it to Phoenix in the championship 4, where you think you'll get the best equipment, the best treatment, all that stuff. And we always talk about how Trackhouse has that, road course chassis, right? Mm-hmm. Who's getting it this weekend? Well, it's probably not Suarez because he already has the win. So it could be Ross, where Ross maybe has the points race, could have the upside for the win, tested here. This is better than his average road course. So I'm very strongly considering Ross. I'm very strongly considering Austin Cindric. Very strongly considering Daniel Suarez. And obviously I'm considering AJ Allmendinger. And also Michael McDowell. So it comes down, I think, to those 5 drivers for me. Ross, Suarez, McDowell, Cindric. Who else did I say? Ross, Suarez, McDowell, Cindric. Oh, and the 16 car. I think it comes down to those 5. It's crazy that I have all 5 of them available.
Are you considering Chase Elliott at all?
No. This is right around his average road course.
Mm-hmm. I was curious because I was kind of looking at him. I was also looking at McDowell, but I felt like McDowell would be better elsewhere. Just doing a quick analysis.
Yeah, I think I almost have Elliott penciled in for the Glen,
Mm-hmm.
just like almost have him penciled in for Glen. So it's between those 5, and I'm starting to look at alternate tracks. I think Daniel Suarez, obviously Atlanta is in play for me. Maybe something like a Michigan if they ever find speed between now and then. Could certainly use him at one of the other road courses if it really comes down to it. Ross, I could definitely use it like a Darlington or a Homestead or a Vegas or Kansas. There's a lot of alternate tracks. Obviously, we talked about the 16. McDowell, I think there's plenty of tracks to use him at. And Cindric, kind of running out of spots to use Cindric.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, it comes down to Austin Cindric or Ross Chastain at this point. And it's a tough decision. Cindric hasn't been great at the Glen. He's been fine, but not great. He's been he's been okay at the Roval, but he's had poor finishes, which I think aren't a reflection of how he's performed there. Chicago street course, he was really good last year. So I could see myself using him there, but do I use SVG? So I think it comes down to Cindric or Ross for me here.
Number 1 or number 2?
I know, right? Number 1 or number 2? I might just have to flip a coin. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna take Austin Cindric. I'm not even flipping a coin. I'm gonna take Austin Cindric.
I was really hoping that you would take Ross. You know why?
Why?
This is partly OCD because when I took Ross, you took Busher.
Oh yeah.
and when you took Reddick, I took Cindric. So and that could also happen again because I still have Reddick.
Right.
Should I change my pick to Reddick? Just
no, I don't think you should. That's funny. Yeah, I kind of want to go Ross, but like especially with the testing. But then I factor in, I think Ross has more usable tracks. I think that really is the tiebreaker for me.
And Ross is more likely to find speed and go on a run where he's gonna, be a legitimate top 10 threat. Whereas Cindric, there's not many places to use him.
Or super speedways, you can use Cindric, but like,
yeah.
I mean, the other options I could use like Justin Haley here because I haven't used him.
That's actually a good. Yeah.
I could definitely use Justin Haley. Problem is, this is his worst road course.
Is it?
Historically speaking, yeah.
21st last year, 12th in 2022.
Yeah, but he, remember, was running a lot better in 2022 and finished 5th at the Roval.
Yep.
Had some better runs elsewhere. Let's see. Second at Chicago Street Course. Right? He had a chance. I think he got passed by SV for the win at that race. So
he led 23 laps in that race.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like I think there's other opportunities to use Haley, whether it's a super speedway or other road courses that I like maybe a little better. 7th and 8th at Atlanta each of the last 2 years in the second Atlanta race. And an 11th, right? I could use him at Atlanta if I don't use Suarez. Yeah, like Coda and Sonoma has been about the same. So in terms of finish, but like in terms of performance, I believe that Sonoma race where he finished 12th, he just kind of like attritioned his way into a top 12. Like, I don't think he ran as well. I'd have to go pull up the stats, but didn't even think about him, but I could consider him as well. So hey, long-winded. I'm still taking Austin Cindric.
That's a good pick. And points are tight now after Josh fucking Berry got me 1 point at gate. I'm not over this. I think what frustrates me more is like I completely forgot who I picked last week in 36 for 36. And I, for some reason, thought it was Cindric. So when the end of that race happened, I was like, oh, I had a good week in 36 for 36. And then I checked it on Monday and I'm like, no, I didn't. I had the worst possible week ever with 1 point.
Here's the funny thing. So remember how last week or two, I did a thing where we like looked at the drivers that we had both already used. And I think I was ahead by like, 5 points or something. Well, because I used Logano, who you had already used, but I hadn't already used Barry, and you actually had 10 more points with Logano. You got 49. I only got 39. I actually fell behind you in that metric, even though I gained 38 points on you this week. So, like,
that's weird.
There's a lot of different ways to look at this, right? Like, in common drivers, I'm 5 points behind you, but I still think that I have a better stable of drivers left. And I'm 11 points behind you. So we're neck and neck, man. We're neck and neck.
Yeah, and so you picked Busher at Dover. He got you 20 points. So that metric itself the gap might get a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Help you. But
depending on how this race goes out.
26, and if I can get a 30 spot from Cindric, that can do it. If he pulls off the top 10 or something.
Oh, yeah.
And a stage point or two.
Yeah.
Gonna be a fun one.
It is. Yeah, practice on Friday, qualifying on Saturday, race on Sunday at the newly repaved Sonoma. And then we head to Iowa for the first Cup race at that racetrack. Yep. Another short, flat track, right? Iowa's short, right? I know it's flat.
Yep. It is 7/8 of a mile.
Okay. It's a night race, too, Sunday night.
14 degrees in the turns, so it's more like a Nashville banking. So it's like flat-ish, but not flat.
Yeah, so we get Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nashville back to back to back. It's gonna be a hard stretch of races. Also, this week is the last week. We didn't even talk about how bad Fox's broadcast of this race was.
Oh yeah, this
It's
point
so-
it's not even a whine about it because we've already whined about Fox enough, but it was horrendous.
Atrocious. Hey, battle for the lead. Let's go to this random kid in the fucking stands. Hey, we've been talking about these fireworks forever. Let's not show them. Like,
Problems for Josh Berry, and then they don't even show it. Like,
it's so it's awful.
and then they had the freaking names on the cars wrong. Like on the scrolling thing. Or whatever, they had like SVG in the 16 or something.
It is
like 3 cars. They had like Kaz Grala in the 15, and they used the Charlotte drivers list for the names in this past race.
how
Terrible.
I don't even understand how some of that shit happens. I really don't. But this is our last week dealing with Fox, and then we get NBC. Actually, the next 2 races are on USA, but the NBC portion of the schedule starts. So I guess that's a positive for this week already, is the last race on Fox. And then we're off to Iowa. So good luck to everybody this weekend at Sonoma. Root for Chris Buescher for us. And we'll see you next week when we head to Iowa once again. Yep. All right. See you guys. Hopefully this live worked, by the way. I checked it a couple times, and hopefully it worked well. All right. See you guys.